Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to fix this issue where the take-up lever is a little bit loose here, and that play just shouldn't exist. There's a problem there where there's this little brass bush that I found floating around in the bottom of the machine that has popped out of its little holder because the holder's actually broken. I just really know this from experience. I've seen quite a few of these do this. It's not a huge job, but you do need a spare part. The spare parts are available, and they're not overly cheap, the spare parts, but the labour's not too bad to get these swapped out. So if you've seen my previous video on this machine, it's the assessment and buyer's guide, and in that video it shows you how to get to this point here where I've got all the covers off. So if you want to know how to get to this point here where you can easily access what you need to fix this problem, and you've got a spare part, well then take a look at that video. So once you've seen that, you will be at this point here where we can start taking this front panel off here. So let's go ahead and do that. So effectively we take that screw there, these two screws here, and this screw down here out. I'll get you a closer look at that. This one at the top here is just a flat screw, and then two posi drive screws here. As I said in the last video, don't worry if you don't have a posi drive screwdriver, use a Phillips if you have to at a pinch. It will slightly damage the screw heads, but it won't damage them badly. And then that one there, remove that. Now there's a few bits and pieces on this screw, so if you're careful you can lift it away without disturbing too much, and if you store it like that, when you go to put this back together you can just screw it back in again without having to figure out where all this goes. But if it does come to bits, it's pretty straightforward. There's a washer there, you've got that arm there, and then a little spring type washer. So it's just the three bits there, and then this should just come out. Yep, might take a little bit of a jiggle because there's this little hook here, hooks over a spring up here, and the foot lifter there can sometimes stop you from getting that, pulling that straight out. Just a bit of a wiggle will get that out. So here we have the culprit here. The next thing to do is to take these two screws here off. Now they're straight, just a smallish sort of straight screw. They're reasonably tight. Another one there. And this whole take-up lever here will come off, and we can see here we've got this play, which is not good. That sideways play is okay, and I think some of this can happen because this shaft here gets dry and this area starts to seize up, and that puts strain on the bearing. I'll show you the bearing soon once we get that out. We need to take this foot bar out. Yeah, that foot bar is actually seized up slightly, and I wonder, that foot bar's seized. I just use CRC 556 or WD-40 would do. Just get a little bit on there. You don't need much, just enough to get it sort of soaking to start with. Couple of wee squirts like that. Probably be a good idea to let that soak. I think we can give it a bit of a helping hand just by gently twisting the foot bar here. I'll just work away at it a little bit there. It's starting to come now. That's it. That's getting it. There we go. That's what we want. Okay, there's the foot bar done. we need to remove that whole foot bar, so we will loosen this screw here. That is already loose, I'm not quite sure why. Anyway, that will allow us to, and also we're going to come up through the, right up out here. So I'll take this screw here off the presser foot mounting screw so that we can get the shaft right up and out of there. And we'll just take note of where these springs are. So you've got a lightweight spring here, we've got this foot lifting bar here, and we've got a heavier weight spring, and there's a little, looks like a little nylon washer on top of that. So pull all that out. Like so. That spring there, that's the main spring. The little return spring, did that little washer stick in there somewhere? Yeah, there it is there. Little nylon washer there. You can put these bits back on to remind you which way they came off. Like that. Put that aside. Now I'm just going to temporarily put the hand wheel back on to make this just a bit easier to turn. I need to get this screw here out first of all, and that will release this linkage here from the needle bar drive. And just be careful, this is a reverse thread. So a reverse thread means that instead of tightening clockwise, it tightens anti-clockwise and loosens, so it loosens clockwise. It's the opposite. The reason they do that is so that it won't come loose because of just the direction that it spins when it's operating. If they didn't have it reverse thread, it would come loose. So that wasn't all that tight. So just remove that one, and then that linkage can come free. Just pops off there. Should do. Yep. There we go. And so that releases the needle bar. We're looking in the back here, and I'm just turning the hand wheel. We're looking for a large screw in here. That one there. That needs to be loosened. Can be tight. Yep, that one's very tight. Just got a better angle there now, and I'm going to hold the hand wheel to stop the machine from turning while I put quite a bit of pressure down on this screw to get it loose. Ooh. Oh no, it's not going to come loose. Time to get out the big guns. How does the saying go? That's not a screwdriver. This is a screwdriver. This is the biggest one I've got. I do have an impact driver, and I wasn't going to use the impact driver as an impact driver. I was just going to use the impact driver because it's got a nice big fat handle on it and a big grunty blade, but it won't fit down in here. So I'll break out the big guns here, see if we can get the screw undone. That's got it. Yeah, that made it quite easily considering. So you're supposed to have the right tools for the job. You might be able to see it there actually. Yeah, that's the screw there. This one here. I once had an operation done on my hand, and so I couldn't use one hand, and of course I couldn't work on doing sewing machine repairs, but someone said to me, oh, that should be fine, just do it all one-handed. And if you've ever worked on a sewing machine, try doing it one-handed, undoing screws and just working one-handed with the machine. It's just about impossible. And doing something like this with a big screwdriver with a really tight screw would just about be impossible with one hand. So yeah, I mean, geez, it's only a sewing machine. Surely you can do it with one hand. Just loosen that a little bit, and then I'm going to give the screwdriver a little bit of a tap. And what that does is it pushes the there's a tapered pin on the end of the screw, and it just pushes the tapered pin out slightly, just like that. Don't need to remove the tapered pin entirely. Yeah, that part's loose there now. So this is the part that we want to get out because it's attached to the part that's broken. Well, these two parts actually are attached to the part that's broken. These two. That whole thing. Now the whole counterweight is trying to come off there, but we don't need to take the entire counterweight out. We can do this without. And so if I'm just holding back with this finger here on the counterweight and pulling this part out. I might just need to loosen that a little bit more, that screw. And just push it down. Now that it's free, I can push it down easily. Just want to try and stop that counterweight from coming off because it might just make things a bit easier to get back together. I've had to stand the machine back up again, just a bit awkward otherwise. That part you can see moving in the back there, that's the counterweight. I'm going to try and leave that in situ if I can. And this part here is the bit that I'm trying to get free along with this here. But the whole lot's being impeded, I think, by this needle bar carrier here. So I think if, let me see, I might be able to, yeah, I haven't done this overly. Whoops, whoops, that's okay. The actual broken linkage has fallen off. Should be able to install the new part easily. So if we just have a wee look what's going on here. This is where the take-up bar attaches, right? So this is going up and down like that. Just bear that in mind. So this is going up and down. So that bar there is being driven by this linkage here, and that shaft there that you can see that my finger's on there, that goes through this hole here. But we'll have a close look at this. So that bar, the drive bar, goes through there, and you might be able to see if I get the, is that split? Yeah, I actually thought there was a split along here. So that's a little bush that runs on that shaft, and that fits in here. Now I thought that this little plastic piece here had actually split along here, but it's actually just a moulding seam. It's not split at all. So what's happened is, rather than what I thought, which was that this here had split and opened up a little bit and let this here just easily fall out, it looks like this part here, I would say what's happened is the shaft that's running through here, so this is sliding up and down the shaft, that's partially seized, and the when that seizes, you know, it's going to take the route of least resistance, and it's just going to pull this this bush out of here. It's going to slip that straight out. So if I put that back in there, I think that if I use a powerful epoxy glue, that is going to fix the problem, which is really handy because the donor machine, this is the part from the donor machine. You can see there how this works. It's, you know, sliding up and down the shaft here, and actually this machine is very well lubricated. You know, there's quite a generous amount of grease in here. Whether you would use grease on this slide, I'm not sure. It might be a little bit heavy. So I'd be tempted to keep that oiled with sewing machine oil actually. I would say that if you were keeping the maintenance up, oil would be fine. For the more long term, maybe grease, but that is providing quite a bit of resistance, that grease there. I don't know whether that's the right option. So that's how that should work. And this was out of my donor machine, so I was just going to literally swap you know, these parts over here. But when I took this one out, I noticed a problem with this one too. It's actually broken. This little piece here is broken away from the side of this black piece here. You know, I wasn't too keen on putting that into a customer's machine. So I thought I was going to have to find another donor, but it turns out that this is actually repairable. So I'll go ahead and repair that by gluing this in with a high strength epoxy glue. Yeah, well, let's call that part 1. Keep an eye out for part 2, where I'll reinstall this here once the epoxy glue has set. Yeah, so I hope you found that helpful, and thank you very much for watching.